Hello, my friends. Coming to you again this month from my library gym and my bare feet. Bare feet, barefoot, bare feet, barefoot, barefoot, bare feet, bare feet, barefoot, barefoot. Barefoot doctor, barefoot writer, barefoot banker, barefoot strong, barefoot athleticism, barefoot training, barefoot, bare feet, bear's feet. Barefoot, bear's feet. The bear's foot. See what I'm doing? I'm playing around with the sound. I'm playing around with the sound of words. Because when you do so, not only does it activate your brain to think differently, different parts of the brain are activated just by nothing but sound. Sound. Different parts of the brain are activated by sound. You have various parts of the brain that verbs hit. Other parts of the brain, adjectives hit. Other parts of the brain, nouns hit. Every word is a sound or a conglomeration of sounds, conglomeration of words put together. This is important for a lot of reasons. It's important because you have an opportunity to title your products with sounds, with alliteration, with words that go together, perhaps with a rhythm or with poetry, maybe with contrast, maybe with a unique, jarring element that seems inexplicable. My brother told me when I came out with Combat Conditioning that it was a bad title. It's not a good title. Expect to win, hate to lose. That's an example of contrast. You expect to win. If the title of the book is only expect to win, it might do great. Hate to lose in and of itself might do great. Put them both together, we've got this effect, this yo-yo effect of down, up, down, up, down, up. And people are pulled in and reeled into your universe because of contrast. It makes you more magnetic, it makes you more charismatic, it makes you more dynamic. More magnetic, more dynamic, more charismatic. This poster I put together recently is Theater of the Mind poster. If we look at the principle of contrast here, you have big red lettering in the center. Then you have black lettering, and you have gray. That's contrast in terms of color, red, black, and gray. Then you have a contrast in terms of the size of the lettering. Some are smaller than others. Some are significantly smaller than others. And then, of course, you have the biggest one of them all. Then there's the contrast of directionality. What direction are the words going? Most posters you see, all the words are going horizontally. Whereas here, we have vertical. We have the verticalization of desire makes the difference. Inhale smiling energy. But then we have a contrast of left-facing verticalization and right-facing. See yourself at your best. Then turn it around and stop blaming yourself, stop blaming others. Calm mind, calm body. This is brilliant. Live each day with gusto and enthusiasm. One day, one lifetime. Compete against yourself. So this, I created for myself. Instead of looking through a bunch of cards, I want something on my wall that I see every single day. And each and every day I can look at it and say, all right, today, the motto, act as though it's impossible to fail. Tomorrow, remember and repeat what works. The next day, 10 feet tall to have it all. The next day, breathe deep. The day after that, trust your success mechanism. There's a whole slew of these. None of them repeat. It wouldn't be a bad thing if they repeated, but it's a series of mental commands that are instructing me on how to live my life that day. Now, one of the key ones here is upgrade your beliefs. Upgrade your beliefs. Now, in most self-development, they teach you to upgrade your beliefs by knowing what you currently believe and then tweaking it and changing it, and they put all this effort into it and make it extraordinarily difficult to do. And this is part of what I'm teaching in my new group, Mind Power Monthly, is how to effortlessly upgrade beliefs. And we become a product of what we believe about ourselves, about what's possible in life. But we also become who we are more than you realize by our name. We become our names. I wrote about it in this month's newsletter. And if you have a name that you think is somehow holding you back, Samuel Langhorne Clemens, for example, you have an opportunity to become Mark Twain. Doesn't mean you get rid of the name you have from birth, but you have a pen name. You can be someone else when you write. You don't have to be the same person when you write. This I first spoke about publicly in, I believe, 2006. Maybe 2007. I have a series of recordings on this, 17 Seconds to Success, I believe it is. And I have all the recordings for that. I've never released it. It was all done via teleseminar. But a phenomenal program. And in this program, I spoke about having two personalities. Actually, we have more than that. But I had talked about two. You have your writing personality, and then you have your regular personality. Now, there were one of my clients and students on these teleseminars is a psychiatrist, and his wife was a psychiatric nurse. After the call, he got a hold of me, and I was wondering what this was going to entail, but he said, you know, This is the first time I've ever heard anybody speak about this as though it's a positive. Normally when you hear of dual personality, you think of it as a negative, but you framed it in a positive light. And he wasn't negative about me doing so. See, as an athlete, as a martial artist, the guy you take into the arena isn't the same guy sitting at home with his buddies. An athlete understands this, but at the same time, a lot of writers don't. They think that the person they are during the day is the person who sits and writes. No. You take on and you put on the armor of God. This is biblical. You put on the armor of God as protection. But as a writer, you can put on the personality of who you want to be at that time. You're not fake. It's a different part of yourself. It's a different aspect of yourself. The reality is that all of us have many personalities. If you're married, you have the personality that you use when you're with your wife. As a father or mother, you have the one you use with your children. And it can vary from child to child. If you are a dog trainer or a veterinarian, you may relate to animals completely different than you relate to human beings. Chances are excellent that's the case. If you are an artist, a painter, you're going to have that aspect of your personality that's different than, let's say, you're out on the ball field kicking a ball around. This is a reality. And we also know this is true because those of us who are goal-centered and goal-oriented, before you go to bed at night, you might make a list of all these things you're going to do tomorrow, all these goals, all of this, your to-do list, and you're going to get it done. And then you go to sleep. And the person who wakes up the next morning is wondering who the jackass was who gave all these dictatorial commands to me before he went to sleep. And if you haven't had that experience, you would be an anomaly. I think that's the correct word. It's not about reining in and controlling all the various personalities and turning them into one. What we're talking about here is understanding that you can utilize all of them. And it's normal to have different aspects of yourself. It's not normal if these aspects of yourself start taking control of you without your consent. So these people who have dissociative disorder, it's now a disorder. It's what we're doing here is saying, look, we have this, but it's not a disorder, it's normal. And now how do you recognize this and utilize it? And you recognize it by saying, how can I take advantage of this propensity or this inclination? How can I take advantage of this? And remember John Carlton, the copywriter, talking about how he changed into a different set of clothes when it's time to write copy. And he would stalk his desk, and he'd walk around his desk in circles, as though, or prance back and forth as though you're a tiger, or a panther, or a lion, back and forth, boom, 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 boom. Do Do you know that if you walk back and forth this way, and go back and forth, over and over, turn around, and back and forth, you do that, you rev up the engine of the brain. It's not just you're getting exercise, you're actually prancing back and forth in this animalistic way. As you oscillate, your brain changes. And you do this, and you're thinking about what you want to write about, and you're asking a question, and then you just forget about the question, or you just get into the walking, and all of a sudden, bang, the ideas come to you. This is how it works. So you become a different person, or a different personality. The problem so many people have is they're unconsciously and unwittingly trying to be one. We're better off understanding that what the Fuhrcat is talking about here is true. If you have the part of yourself that says, I'm gonna write a book, I'm gonna finally do it, I'm gonna write copy, I'm gonna put up a website, I'm gonna have info products, I'm gonna get emails going out. Then you wake up the next day and that desire is gone and somebody else is in the place. Just recognize that and be aware of it. And that's where you use tools such as this. That's where you use visualization and imagination work. Listen, I have to clear the mechanism. I need to clear the mechanism of who I am when I wake up and put myself on the path I want to go on. That's the key. And changing from task to task. You work during the day as a lawyer, as a doctor, as a mail carrier, as an Uber driver, whatever it is. And you get home and you want to write, but you also don't want to write. You got both ideas jockeying for position. That means there's a lack of clarity. There's a lack of focus. You sit down, you clear your mind, and you begin to picture what it is you want to be doing. This eliminates the resistance. There's no more jockeying for position because you have one big, gigantic, dominant thought. 10 feet tall to have it all. Picture yourself 10 feet tall. And then that image takes control. 10 feet tall, writing, creating, doing whatever it is you want to do as part of this business. Some recommendations, actually not recommendations. I just want to show you a couple of the sources of where I've gotten this kind of information from over the years. I want to begin with this book by Lucia Capacchione, The Power of Your Other Hand. This is all about writing and or drawing with both hands. And the purpose of it is to increase brain connectivity. She doesn't spell it out that way. This is more of an airy-fairy approach. She doesn't talk about it as much about the brain as I do. Some. But when you use both hands to do things, you're going to cause neurogenesis. You're going to cause new brain cells, new neurons to be created. Neurogenesis. And you create also a neuroplasticity where you have more expansive mindset. You see other possibilities where other people don't because your brain is organized in a different way. The right hand writing will be significantly different than when you write with the left hand. It's almost as though there's a different personality. There's a different part of the brain being accessed. Ultimately, we're getting the whole brain. But this is where I first learned this, and it was in the early 1990s. I bought a bunch of her books. I probably bought all of them. Here's another one. This was Lighten Up Your Body, Lighten Up Your Life. And it was all about healing your internal emotions through drawing and writing with either hand. The thing is about this is that she didn't specify that your writing ought to be cursive. She allowed people to print, which is fine, but you're not going to get the most out of your brain with printing. You want to get the most out of yourself, you need to create this flow state. So cursive handwriting is the key. And when you use your non-dominant hand, you want to use it in what's called mirror image. So, right-handed, regular, I'm going to be going this way. And see how I'm falling into it? I'm leaning into it. When I use my non-dominant hand, I'm going from right to left instead of left to right. Otherwise, you're a lefty who's trying to screw your arm. How do I write cursive? Ultimately, you can get so you can write with either hand in either direction. If I'm writing the word image, I get into a nice state of flow. The letters are running along. I lean into it. They're not vertical. Vertical would look this way. See a lot of people who write cursive and the letters go straight up. It doesn't have that flow, that wave-like flow that this has. Now when you go to mirror image, the easiest way to learn is to have a sheet of paper that bleeds through, and you just flip it over and you copy with the other hand. The same word, image, I got to learn to write this way, so you've got to memorize a different pattern. But the whole idea here is if we take the word mat, M-A-T, and then I write the same word in mirror image, you know, I have to really calm down my mind and think. I have to get into the present moment. So this doesn't mean that you need to write all your emails out in cursive or handwrite all your sales letters in cursive. Although Gary Halbert did, and so did Ted Nicholas. Always wrote it by hand first. We get these this advice from, let's say, the six-figure copywriting course and so on. That you want to copy good sales letters and good emails and so on. In your own, with your own handwriting. You want to copy them by hand. They don't mean print. I specifically asked Ted Nicholas this. When you say by hand, did you mean in cursive or print? He says, by hand. By hand means what? Cursive. Gary Halbert, same thing. I've seen Dan Kennedy doesn't have the greatest handwriting in the world, but when he writes, I saw that he was writing it in cursive. He wasn't writing it in print. Cursive has a power of its own. It's a tremendous power. The Declaration of Independence was not written in print. This is one of the reasons that people argue that the cursive handwriting has gone out of style in the U.S. It's all part of a plot, and nobody, after a certain age, can read the thing. Can't read the Constitution, can't read the Declaration of Independence, because you can't write cursive. If you can't write cursive, you cannot read cursive. The same goes with mirror image. If you can't write it, you can't read it. All right? But when you can write it, you can read it. They are two different skills, but the first comes with the writing. So that's one of the things I would do, journaling, when I'm working on subject lines for emails, or I have product ideas, or headlines for various products. I'm writing in cursive. Not sitting there printing words, writing in cursive. When it comes to your goals and such, I also write. Don't type them on a spreadsheet or type them onto a sheet of paper and store on your computer. Write them down in cursive so you can hold this piece of paper in your hand. One of the values of cursive handwriting is it goes into the brain deeper. This is all scientifically validated. This isn't just my opinion. But second is it slows you down. Part of the key of success is slowing down and getting in the moment and getting focused. When you read your goals that are written in cursive, it causes you to look and slow down so that it goes in deeper. Regarding a couple other books. Before we named my son and daughter, Frank and Faith, respectively, I got this book by Ellen Dodge, You Are Your First Name. She also did a book on numerology, and I think that numerology is good to know, but most of these people take this way too far in certain aspects. But it is actually good to know so that you can go through the letters of the alphabet and know what letter means what number. And if you follow the QAnon, you'll see that a lot of the things that are written in this are coded in numerology. So it's important to know that Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet. And whenever Trump has a champion sports team at the White House, let's say this year, if there is football, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win. And let's say they went to the White House. All of these things are up for grabs, as you know. Well, the chances are about 100% that Trump would be given the jersey number 17. Guaranteed. This has happened over and over again with other teams that have gone to the White House. It's not a mistake. It's done deliberately. So now, there's speculation as to whether or not the QAnon is a conspiratorial theory, if it's a this, if it's a that. But I'm not somebody who shuns or scoffs at the word conspiracy. I enjoy reading this stuff, and I think and I ponder, is this true? Does this make any sense? But I can tell you this, when I was a junior in high school, senior in high school, I did a report, handwritten in cursive that I still have, all about this stuff, way back in high school. I grew up in a family where it wasn't considered some kind of social sin or vice to not ask questions beyond what you're fed. Maybe this isn't true. Maybe this is true. Maybe this is partly true. I was raised in a house, my dad's a lawyer. You just didn't buy everything you were told and believe it. And especially now, I mean, it's very, very dangerous to think that what you're being told over the daily news is reality, is the truth. And some people say, oh, you trust some anonymous guy on YouTube more than the news? Some of these people on YouTube have bigger followings, or more people tune into them each day than tune into CNN, for example. That's not an anonymous source. All right, anyway, enough of that. But studying names, this is first name. But if you want to read something that you might want to have some peyote or some other, hallucinogenic drugs prior to reading, which I'm not recommending, by the way, but I'm just saying, the guy who wrote this book, he openly acknowledges figuring this out as a result of him using a lot of hallucinogenic drugs. And it's a weird, strange, odd book. A friend of mine told me about it about a year ago, and I picked it up. It was a couple $100, I believe. But this guy goes through, mostly during the time of the Reagan presidency, and he's coding everything according to the names. The first name, the last name. And it's interesting beyond belief to see that all these different characters from both sides of the aisle, from the media, the people in the cabinet, the people who work in, let's say it's Secretary of State versus Secretary of the Treasury versus all these different roles, the names they're given. And then the person, he gets caught doing this, or he's found doing that. And then you look at it with the name and you see what the activity was, and you say to yourself, oh my God, that is really strange. But even that, as strange as it is when you read this, it's still very difficult to look at it and not say to yourself, nah, come on. You're high. You're on crystal meth. But I'm not telling you that what he's saying in here is 100% accurate. I mean, the guy's, he's out there. But it does crack open your mind to start looking at what's going on in the world. Who are the characters? What's the person's name? See? What's the person's name? What did he or she do? What's this person become famous for? What's this person's inclination in terms of his thinking? What words does this person regularly use, and what's his or her name? It's very, very fascinating. One of you wrote me after reading the newsletter and said, are you saying that Biden is biding his time? Very interesting take. And you look at the Trump campaign and say, Biden's hiding. So playing with words. Playing with words. And if a name is changed, I remember a comedian some years ago who was pointing out that Trump's family name was Drumpf or some such thing. And it was changed to Trump. So what? What does that prove? Proves they were smart changing the name to something that's a little easier to spell and has a more powerful context. That's all I want to cover for today, but again, these are some of the many sources of materials that I've read on this. And then, of course, there's the intuitive part, that you tap into your own inner knowing. And part of that is activated through writing with either hand. Part of that is activated. And then ultimately you sit down to type and you're using both hands. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Both hands at the same time. Yeah, it is. So all of you, based on that, are ambidextrous, and you didn't even know it. See, I just gave you a different way to think about yourself. Are you ambidextrous? Yes. Because I use both hands at the same time. when I type. Now, do you do that on an iPhone or whatever phone you use? I just use one digit. That's all I use. My children, all thumbs, both at the same time. I do one. One finger. The one finger email copywriter. Now you know why I've used that term a number of different times. The one-legged golfer, the one-fingered email copywriter. Here endeth the lesson. Kick it.